Nowadays in 2025, Google Ads can be pretty confusing. You have all kinds of campaign types from search over shopping to PMAX, which includes everything. And then you also have demand gen and display campaigns, for example. In today's video, I want to clarify when to use demand gen, when to use display ads, what the differences really are, and how to determine what the ideal campaign type for you really is, so that you don't bother about going with the wrong type, losing performance, and not getting the most out of Google Ads. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video and start with a very quick comparison of where do demand gen and display ads actually show up, because there's a lot of confusion out there, like what is the real difference and how do I determine, which one to really use. So the thing is, demand gen is, for example, showing in the Google Discover feed, which is a very high quality placement that Google has, for example, on like the home screen of the Google app on an Android phone, for example, right? Or YouTube feeds where you can place images and videos as well, or also the Gmail promotions and social tab. So the inventory that demand gen offers is pretty high quality and Google owned, which means Google knows that you are not showing on any like ultra low quality placements, that everything fits together pretty well. And in general, I would say that ads on the demand gen network tend to be generally higher quality and you have a bit more possibilities. When it comes to display ads, on the other hand, you can show up on the entire Google display network, which means literally millions of websites out there can trigger your ad in all kinds of shapes and sizes. There are like websites, apps, Gmail, and also some YouTube placements, but primarily when we talk about the Google display network, we're actually talking about websites, like millions of them, and also millions of apps that are working with AdSense or with Google in order to show your ads inside those apps, which means the quality tends to be a little bit lower because of course it fluctuates depending on the actual site that you're showing on. But in general, there is like kind of endless inventory out there. When it comes to goals and targeting, that's probably even more important, right? Because now it's about which campaign type does make sense for your context. And first of all, I must say that demand gen is heavily conversion focused. Of course, in the end, like most brands out there are basically going for conversions and are chasing conversions as the main thing, and probably also you. But demand gen definitely have the focus on generating conversions and doing so relatively quickly. They are focused on leveraging, for example, lookalike audiences, custom segments, and slightly warmer audiences in order to really go after the sale. When I say warm audiences, I mean qualified audiences. I don't mean in this specific case retargeting, because we will talk about that in a second. We're still talking about pushing your traffic to generally people that don't know you yet, and as the name suggests, creating or generating demand in the first place. And also, there is no active search, but there is fairly clear intent. So people think that just because you don't have search or shopping anymore in a demand gen campaign, you never had search and shopping in there, but you get what I mean. Just because you're moving away from like search intent, that there is no sort of intent whatsoever. But of course, when you define a very good demand gen audience, there is still that intent behind it, because it might be a user that is currently in the market for, I don't know, buying new furniture because they just moved houses, but they're not searching for furniture right now. But maybe they have done so like 3 days ago or a week ago, and Google therefore knows that they're in the market for furniture. And that's exactly what demand gen will do. It will look for people that are generally in your sort of set of prospects, right, that are generally a good fit, and then shows them your ads. Whereas on the display side, I personally think that they're better suited for retargeting and brand awareness, right? So if you have a lot of visitors, display ads gives you a lot of flexibility for retargeting, plus they tend to be cheaper, right? So retargeting ads make a lot of sense because people know you already, and therefore having like these cheaper display ads normally makes more sense than having these more expensive demand gen ads. And brand awareness, similar thing. You just want like the maximum inventory, show your ads. You don't care about immediate performance yet if you are going for brand awareness, and their display tends to be the better fit. Also, the reach tends to be a bit more broad and a bit less precise. So yes, You can use contextual targeting, you can use specific placements, etc., and audiences as well, but demand gen is just more flexible when it comes to all the different audiences that you can use and the LLAs and all that stuff and the higher quality placements. So it's super broad. You can technically scale to endless amounts. I mean, we had a case I remember pretty vividly where we were spending like 10 to 20,000 per day on display ads consistently for a whole while. It was a very short-lived campaign, right? It just happened over a course of like a couple of weeks, but nonetheless, you can scale ultra fast on display if everything is a great fit. But I admit that display is not the easiest campaign type to get to run very profitable, because that one was actually a cold traffic campaign and not retargeting. Let's talk about the creative formats. You see, we're basically marching through this video here very, very quickly because I just want to give you all the info and facts that you need to make a decision here. So with demand gen, we have, carousels where you can show multiple image ads at once, just as you're used to from Instagram and Facebook as well. Also, you have short form vertical videos, again, similar to like stories or reels on Instagram and Facebook too. And you have like more interactive images. You can use all kinds of things, right? But they tend to be a bit more interactive. They are of course responsive as well, so meaning you combine them with headlines and everything. But in general, the creative formats on demand gen are designed to give you like maximum quality, to look really good, and to just be a bit more like, to look, in my opinion, better regardless of where they're ultimately showing up. Whereas on display, you have like these static banners, which can work very well too, don't get me wrong, it's not a negative thing, right? But you get these static banners, you're probably familiar, you have like these 728 times 90 pixels, or you have these squares, or you have like 300 times 250, you have all these different banner sizes for all these different placements. Yes, you can also use responsive display ads on display, but the classical sort of format that most people have been familiar with over all the years that display ads have been around are those classical static banners, right? You have responsive images, as I said as well, and it does make sense to use them if you don't want to create all these different sized static images. Plus, Google says that for the most part, responsive images are actually performing better just because they can adapt to the actual placement and optimize, etc. But those are the main things that you can use here. And you have then what most people never actually used, HTML5 ads. I must say here at Cartlift, we're also using them very, very rarely. I would say we probably had maybe 10 cases over all those 6-7 years that we've been working with clients where we actually really used HTML5 ads, animations, kind of things, interactive stuff. They can be pretty cool, but there needs to be a good reason to create them. There are more work to create. They are not always performing better. It's one of those shiny objects where you may think, yeah, having those will definitely set you apart by a huge margin. But then in the end, you realize, okay, the performance has actually been very similar or maybe even worse than with our super easy images and responsive images. So it's cool to have those, but it's not really something that will give you an edge necessarily. You have to make it, of course, a good fit to your product or to your service to make sure that you're using HTML5 ads in the best possible way. We also have, as it's very important, now I missed the title over here, it's not creative formats anymore. Now we're talking about some real characteristics of demand gen and display ads. And this is that demand gen are very, very AI heavy, right? Everything gets auto optimized. Google learns with every dollar that you spend, with every conversion that you make. That's true for all campaign types, of course, including display, but demand gen relies on that even more so. With display, you have all these different bidding strategies still available, manual CPC, you name it. With demand gen, Google definitely wants you to set a budget, $100, $200, $300 per day or more, and then let it run for a while. I understand that this can sometimes be frustrating because you're like, well, Google just wants my money anyway. Of course, they're recommending those things, but I can kind of confirm that you need to give it some time with some somewhat legit spend, as I said, at least 100 to 200 per day to actually test something through. You have a clear focus on optimization for conversions, right? So that is specifically what the campaign is optimizing for, not for reach, not for, warming people up or things like that. It's actually following through with them. So if you master sort of direct response with demand gen, having great images, having a good landing page that is focused on direct response, and then maybe combining it with retargeting ads from display, that is exactly how you can get the most out of it. And that's very important because most brands that we work with, regardless of whether they spend $10,000 a month or $150,000 a month, they are still not in the $1 billion range where they can just afford spending millions on like pure brand awareness. They want performance right away, or as quickly as possible at least. And that is what demand gen is generally good for. But of course, you need to also be able to spend some decent amount to get the ball running in the first place. With display ads, it optimizes for reach, clicks, and engagement, right? As we discussed already, you can get endless amounts of visits to your site. You can get endless eyeballs to your product or on your product, basically. And it's great for retargeting because there you know that people have visited your site before, so they are already valuable, and you're not necessarily reliant on this optimization or AI-heavy optimization that you have in demand gen. So the final point now is, of course, which one should you use? And you should use demand gen if you want to focus on action and cold traffic conversions, right? Pretty straightforward. If you want performance and if you want fast performance or faster, typically, then this is a good fit. Also, if you have a larger set of high quality assets, remember, demand gen is very visual. It's in good placements. So there is a lot of detail. And in my opinion, you should use demand gen only if you have a somewhat decent set of assets. Don't bother if you have like 2 white background images and a kind of poorly designed video, because then you should stick to, search or shopping, PMax, whatever, if you're an e-commerce brand like most people on this channel are. So that is very important. Don't just use demand gen for the sake of it because you think it's cool or trendy or something. It has to be a good fit for your creative and asset base. On the other hand, you can use display ads if you want to focus on retargeting. And in my opinion, that is actually the main use case for display ads now in 2025. Yes, I gave you that story of the 20,000 per day ad spend and everything. There are more use cases for it, but the core use case for display ads is retargeting, in my opinion. Also, if you want to run some low-cost brand awareness campaigns, if you want to spend like 5 cents a click, 10 cents, 20 cents a click, if you just want to have a low CPM where you know that you won't drive a lot conversions from it, but you just want to get as many eyeballs or as many visitors as possible to your site, then they're better than demand gen, because with demand gen, you always pay a premium for both the inventory as well as for all this conversion optimization. You probably notice firsthand the moment that you switch to something like max conversions or target ROAS, normally your CPCs are higher than when you're using manual CPC, which is normally offset by the fact that you have better ROAS, higher conversion rates, etc. But in the context of display, where you're not necessarily going for the immediate conversion, then it makes sense to go manual and just say, hey, we don't want to spend more than 20 cents per click, so please give us some traffic that way. So with that being said, I hope that this video has been helpful for you. I hope that now you have a decent understanding of when to use display and when to use demand gen. It's not a traditional video like you normally find on this channel. It was very focused on just the cold hard differences between those two campaign types. Nonetheless, I hope it was helpful. And if you need more help, if you say, hey, I want to make demand gen work, I want to scale my account, we're stuck at, 20,000 a month in ad spend, we cannot scale to 50, or if you simply don't want to deal with the hassles and confusion of Google Ads anymore, then I recommend that you check the link in the description, cartlift.co, where you can book an Ignite call with me, where I tell you exactly what I think is possible with your brand. We have scaled e-commerce brands to $500,000 a month in revenue, $1 million, $3 million a month at peak, and we're completely focused on ROAS and performance. We don't have long-term contracts. We do have guarantees for specific use cases and for specific brands that are a good fit. So it's literally a no-brainer. Make sure to check the link in the description. Please leave a like and please subscribe if you enjoyed this channel and primarily this video. And I look forward to really see you in the next video again. Thank you very much and bye-bye.